Hi, welcome to our online lecture for week 10 for COMM107. Today we're looking at the language of war, and we're drawing on the work of three authors, Annabel Lucan, David Butt and Christian Matheson, from a book in 2004. We're looking at whether or not when people make language choices, are they really representing reality, or are they presenting their view of that reality or their ideology? Because that's what we've been dealing with in the last lecture and in this lecture and in lectures to come. What choices that people make, we're looking at what choices people make and how they reflect their view of the world, their values, their ideology. Now, you'll need to pause here and see if you can work out, this is a review, what are the process types that you can see here. I don't have time in this lecture to stop, so you need to pause it. See if you can work it out for yourself before you go to the next slide, which is the answers. Okay, so pause it now, see if you can work it out, and then start again. So here are the answers. Sugar dissolved or melted, that's a material process because it's an event, it's an action. When people see something or forget or feel, this is their perception or their cognition. Cognition means understanding, or their feelings, their mental processes. They laughed, sneezed, watched, sang. These are the outward expressions of an inward feeling or thought, so that's a behavioural process. She replied, she told, she said. These are all speaking in some way, so these are verbal process types. Then there are the two process types that use the verb to be: is, was, are, were. And the first one, there was once a small army, it's saying it exists, so that's existential process type. And the last one, when you're describing someone or something, it's a relational process type. So he was strong, she was our leader. I hope you did well with those. Okay, so now we're going on to reporting war, which is the topic of today's lecture. Basically, governments run war, they run the military, and they give media briefings to journalists who write the newspaper reports. So often the language is coming from the government. But whatever choices journalists make do show what their view of the war is or what the government's view of the war is. And they're making these decisions grammatically. It's how they make their sentences. So you can deliberately lie, if a journalist can lie or a government can lie, or they can simply make certain sentences, certain grammar choices to show their view of the world, or to get us to see the war in a certain way. That's what's important. And that's a reality, that's a theory of reality, a theory of ideology. As I said, often the governments want to manage public opinion. They don't want the people in their country to think that, for example, Australian soldiers are killing people in other countries. They want to play it down. So this is what it's often about. We've got two examples of two different quotations. One from 1944 where the general said, we're not going to just shoot the sons of bitches, we're going to rip out their living goddamn guts. Compare that with the President of the United States in 2003 who said, now that conflict has come, the only way to limit its duration is to apply decisive force. Now, in both of these, they're talking about war. They're talking about killing people. But the first one is very much material, physical. It's very direct. People are involved. People are killing other people. But the second one, you can see they've removed the human experience from it. It's a very abstract way of writing. These are grammatical choices, and they represent what should be a reality. They represent it in two different ways. So we're looking in this lecture at two kinds of representation when writing. How do we represent the agent in a war situation? Who's causing death and who's causing bombings? And also the impact of war on people. These are the two things we're looking at: agency and impact. So firstly, agency. The agent is whatever participant in a clause is causing something to happen. So it could be an actor, a behaviour, a censor. Whatever it is, they are causing something to happen. Like the smoke made my eyes water, or the movie delighted them, and so on. Whoever's in the role of causing something to happen is the agent. So, we have a choice. We could use the human participant, like we or soldiers, as the agent. Or, and this is what we see when people report on war, sometimes they put technology in the role of agent. So here are some examples. A US Air Force planner said US warplanes were likely to drop 10 times as many precision-guided bombs. So we've got a different effect here with effacing or taking out. Efface is to take out. We're taking out human agency. So it's now the planes that are doing the bombing, not the people. So we're dehumanizing the war. We are leaving humans out as agents of the war. Very interesting. That is going to lessen, in our minds, lessen the impact somehow of this war, where people are not somehow involved. It's just technology that's doing it. Very interesting. Another way of leaving out the agent, or effacing the agent, is by using the passive voice. And you can see here 6 planes were catapulted or launched off the deck. So who did it? We don't know. Perhaps it's not important, but at least our focus is again taken off the humans. We're just seeing the planes somehow moving. Another way, this is fascinating, another way to take out agency is what we call middle voice. This is where bombs themselves somehow drop, which is not possible in reality. So if you look at the first one, coalition forces dropped bombs on Baghdad. Well, what is the agent here? You should have seen coalition forces. People dropped bombs on Baghdad. But compare it with the second one, which is bombs fell on Baghdad. What is the agent? The bomb is the agent. But really, can a bomb be an agent? Not possible. So it suggests that no one or no person is causing these bombs to drop. They are just dropping themselves. We're calling that middle voice, where something that is not human can make itself happen by itself. Here are some other examples. It's more information about the answers. Now, both sentences are truthful descriptions, but they're different versions of reality, because in the first version, the agent is named. There is an external cause, it's clear. But in the second version, there's no agency. There's no one responsible for what has happened. You can call it self-engendered. The bomb itself has just dropped out of the sky. So we've got 3 types of voice: active, passive, and middle. So in the first one, coalition forces dropped bombs on Baghdad. That's an active voice. We know the soldiers or the Air Force pilots have dropped the bombs. But in the second one, we've got a passive voice. Bombs were dropped on Baghdad by coalition forces. That's the passive voice. Now, you could take out by coalition forces and we wouldn't even know in the sentence, they wouldn't even be there. And the last one, bombs fell in Baghdad, there's no agent, there's no external agent. This is a middle voice. So let's say it again. Middle voice is a very powerful way of removing agency, removing human agency. Okay? There can be no agent. Okay? The bomb cannot be an agent. And from the quotation earlier, now that conflict has come is middle voice. Conflict cannot come itself. Okay? People create conflict, and yet it looks like it's just a natural thing that happens. So we are removing agency. We're certainly removing human agency. So here's some more examples. You can come back and look at those later. Our second thing that we said we were looking at is, what is the impact of the war? Now, obviously a government wants to lessen the impact. They want to make it look like the war is not really hurting anyone, or at least is not hurting too many people, or not in a bad way. So again, we went back to the General Patton quotation where he said that we're not just going to shoot the sons of bitches, we're going to rip out their living goddamn guts. This is directly impacting humans. But the other one, we go to liberate, not to conquer. The human action, yes, it's human action, but it's not impacting on anyone. So the impact is immediately lessened. So you can reduce impact by the choice of process you use. Patton chose words like shoot and rip out, which are very action material processes, and they're quite violent. But Collins chose processes liberate or conquer, which don't have the same violent meaning. Another way of reducing impact is to have an action process but no goal. So you can have, in this example, the first missiles hit in the Rashid area. We don't say who they hit, it just says they hit in a certain area. So if there's no goal, there's no people, then it lessens the impact. Another way of reducing impact is by using a depersonalized goal. For example, cruise missiles and bombs hit Baghdad. So you're using the city as a depersonalized goal. It's not people, it's a city. Or the aircraft are going to strike targets. Now these targets could be sort of areas or buildings or even some people, but it's depersonalized. We don't see the people. Now another one is to use grammatical strategies where humans impacted are now in the circumstance. So you've got the fighter bombers have dropped bombs, that's the goal now, not people, and they've dropped the bombs on Iraqi Republican Guard units. So it's now in the circumstance, so it's a bit further removed. So again, lessening the impact. So finally, we're seeing the new forms of language that are being used to report war. The choices of grammar and the words the reporters or the governments use are creating our models of reality. It's forcing us to think or believe something about war that we might not believe, but the government wants us to believe. So facts are brought into existence by journalists through the choices of grammar and the words they use. It's very important. Keep this in your mind. So we looked at the two ways to represent war so as to depersonalize war and lessen the impact by effacing agency through voice and technology as agent, and reducing impact by choice of processes or no goal or depersonalized goal. So do your week 10 blog, and I will see you in class in week 11. All the best.